Good morning, everyone. Here I am again in February for Tuesday tea time. I have to admit, I'm out of the habit of being social like this, so I did forget my tea, but I'm here in the pasture with Ari. He's doing some grazing, and I have been off social media since the beginning of December, so I know that a lot of people are not used to me showing up for tea times, and that's fine. If some of you show up now, if some of you see this on recording, it's all good. I am feeling rested. I am feeling ready for 2023. I had a really good sabbatical. It was absolutely the right thing for me to do, to take some time away from social media. And, Laurence, you're here. Yes, I'm happy to see you too. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about rest, seeing I've been thinking about it a lot. And it doesn't just apply to me as a human, it applies to my horses also. So what you see here is Ari grazing. And I really think that because horses are herbivores, because they spend so much of their time eating, this is one of their forms of rest. And as human beings, we often get impatient with how much they want to eat all the time. We're built differently. We don't spend as much of the time as they do eating. And we don't use it quite the same way they do. And so I really think that as Ari is coming along here, just finding his next bite of grass, he's certainly not fully asleep. He is thinking a little bit about what bite of grass he's going to eat next. But there's not a lot of thought about it. Okay, so there where he kind of moved a little bit extra to find his next spot, there was a little bit more thought there, a little bit more planning of what he was going to do. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with him being a little bit more awake. I actually like it. But there will be periods of time here where he settles into a grazing rhythm. And see, my camera blipped out for a second there. All right. So Ari is, in a sense, grazing. And you guys probably heard my donkey in the background. He's down here in the valley with the boys now. He would like to be out here grazing in the new pasture too. I think that wintertime is really interesting for a lot of people because we forget how stressful it is for horses when the weather changes, when they're either out in a storm all night or they're locked in a barn and they're hearing the storm outside. So a lot of times there are a lot of stressors that come up with the extreme levels of winter that we have with the horses. They are outdoor herd creatures. They want to be running around with their friends. They want to be fully involved in their lives. But what that means is when you have more stressors, you also need more rest time to recover from those stressors. So there's a saying that I've always really appreciated, which is you can't add pressure to tension. If you add pressure to tension, you end up with explosion. So in the dominant world, a lot of people really focus on relaxation, getting the horses relaxed as possible so that when you add pressure, you're not going to cause an explosion. I do things a little bit differently, as most of you know. So that means that I don't value relaxation quite the same as a more dominant trainer would, because I'm not going to put a huge amount of pressure on my horses. Because I choose not to work with a lot of pressure, I am going to use a slightly different theory, which is I would like my horses as awake and alert and curious as possible. I want them using their brains. I do not want them very relaxed all the time. However, I do accept that a certain amount of rest is going to be necessary in between the thinking moments. So here, when Ari is grazing, I think this is a form of rest. He is figuring out how to use less of his senses. Certainly, he's still eating food. I don't think he's tasting it a lot. It's that thing where you take that first bite of food, it tastes really rich and really sweet or salty or whatever it is. And I think, if he looks up from his grazing and then looks down again, he's going to use his sense of taste more. If he's just eating bite after bite after bite of food, he's using a lot less senses. And if he's using less senses, that is a form of rest. So we often think of rest as strictly sleep, where you kind of shut down all of your senses and you're not using any of your senses. And that would be a fuller, deeper rest. I think for horses, because of the way they're organized, they often take smaller amounts of rest that is less deep. And so Ari's here grazing and he is resting from the long night of rain we just had. You see some blue sky coming out. The rain has just gone away, luckily. But it was a very long rainy night and he was out with his herd and he had to survive through that weather event. This is something that happens all the time in the winter. Even if you put your horses in and they are not out in the storm, they're still hearing it, experiencing it, and having some amount of stress just from being locked up away from their natural environment. So when we add stressors to the horse's environment, they will need more rest time to recover from those stressors. And then when they are recovered, hopefully they can turn up all their senses, use their 5 senses really well, use their focus categories really well, exercise their brain really well. And then that's when and where they can be the most interactive partner with you. That's when they can do things that you ask really easily because they're fully turned on and awake and alive and interested, using their intrinsic motivators more than their extrinsic motivators. So with dominant training, a lot of times we will want the horse much more relaxed so we can put pressure on them, a form of extrinsic motivation. Nothing wrong with it. But I really like playing with intrinsic motivation, which is where I keep my horse company with the right kind of responses so that they can get the rest that they need, and then they can be fully awake and present and interested using all their senses so they intrinsically want to do things. And when they're in that state of mind where they intrinsically want to do things, that's where I can make suggestions. I can cause them to learn more. I can ask them to think more. I can ask them to change focus to things I want to do. And this is an evolution. It takes a long time, but I love the process. So I am home for the month of February. I'm going to play with my horses a lot, keep honing my skills in my own workplace here. And for any of you guys interested in diving into more theory, I am holding a salon in my Patreon group in 2 weeks. That would be Tuesday the 21st. So if anybody wants to join me for a salon and we can do some Q&A and talk about theory, I'd love to have you join the Patreon group and be part of that event. Until then, I'm just going to do tea times once a month. So I will see you guys again in March. And I will be doing a tea time from New Zealand. I will be in New Zealand for all of March. I get to have 4 different clinics in New Zealand. So I look forward to seeing some of you guys there. And then throughout the rest of the year, I'll be home 3 weeks and traveling 3 weeks throughout Europe and the US. So it's good to be back. I'll be a little bit more present on social media now. And my weekly videos will start up on Patreon again, sharing updates of what I'm doing and what I'm learning and what these horses are teaching me. So I'm going to go spend some time with Ari, being a little bit more attentive to when he's resting and when he's thinking more, and monitor my responses to his rest and his thinking in the best ways so that he can get his brain organized to do as many fun things with me as possible when we're both ready. Have a great day, you guys. Thanks for joining me for tea time. And my next public tea time will be in March. If you want to do the salon with me on the 21st, join me in the Patreon group. Thank you, guys.